Jacob. Welcome back to Bad 90s Music. You don't have to look very far to find artists who had success both in a group and as solo musicians, but you don't find too many who manage to do so while also switching entire genres, styles, and sounds at the same time. That's what Everlast managed to do. Everlast was born Eric Schrody in New York, and he got to start as a rapper in the Los Angeles area. In the late 80s, he was part of Ice-T's Rhyme Syndicate, which at the time was about as real as it gets. You know, this is basically a time in rap music when a white rapper that you could take seriously really hasn't broken through yet. We had the Beastie Boys so far, that was basically it. I mean, Beastie Boys were basically kind of a novelty act, but at least they were in on the joke. And if it's true that people love a redemption story more than anything else, then you get two for the price of one when it comes to Everlast's story. His first solo album was actually released in 1990 called Forever Everlasting, and it is much more of sort of normal old school rap style. This is a single from it called I Got the Knack, which samples the Knack song My Sharona. I think at this stage his rap style didn't really stand out that much. He basically sounds like the Fresh Prince on a lot of these songs. Here's another one, this is called Speak No Evil. I mean, that sounds like Will Smith, right? It's not just me. That was in 1990. I mean, it's the same year that Vanilla Ice became famous, so I don't think he stood much of a chance to begin with. So basically, that album didn't really do anything for him. And soon after that, he hooked up with Danny Boy and DJ Lethal to form the group House of Pain, whose most successful song was actually produced by DJ Muggs of Cypress Hill.
Pack it up, pack it in, let me begin. I came to win, battle me, that's a sin. I won't ever slack up, hook you, let her back up. Try and play the role and you're the whole crew will act.
It never occurred to me when I was growing up, but this really does sound just like a Cypress Hill song. Although actually the production borrows a lot from the Bomb Squad. You can hear a lot of those types of sounds in Public Enemy songs from around the same time, which is basically a sturdy melodic backbeat with just a loud, obnoxious squealing noise over the top of it.
Get up, stand up, come on, throw your hands up if you got the feeling. Jump up, press the ceiling, monks, let's up, someone's fucking jump, yeah, I'll bust them in the eye, and then I'll take the punks up.
Everlast is sounding a lot tougher here than he did on his earlier album. He didn't sound like as much of a commercial rap. This sounds like real hardcore rap you could actually imagine like people listening to in the inner cities. You know, that's what they were going for at this time. Rap got a lot harder between when he first did his solo album and then when House of Pain released their first album. House of Pain released two more albums in the 90s. 1994's Same As It Ever Was, and 1996's Truth Crushed to Earth Shall Rise Again. Neither of them had anything on it that was nearly as successful as Jump Around, and they ended up breaking up after the 1996 album. They actually announced their breakup, I think, the same day that the album dropped, which was, I guess, how little faith they had that it was going to recapture any of the success they had previously with Jump Around. Around this time in his life, Everlast actually converted to Islam. He was raised Irish Catholic, and he had sort of a spiritual awakening after his time with House of Pain and ended up converting to Islam. Didn't change his name, I don't believe. He kept his name as Eric Schrody or Everlast. He had a new religion. He found religion. That was part of the reason why I think with his next musical project he decided to go into a more serious direction than he had been doing. Try to add a little bit more of a spiritual dimension, a little more of a philosophical slant to his lyrics. I mean, you talk about this guy's resilience. His group is over. His first solo album completely flopped, and he just kept going. It was like he knew he had a statement that he wanted to make, or he had a style that he wanted to share with the world that he just hadn't found yet, and he was going to keep working on it until he was able to get that out. And so, in 1998, as he was working on his follow-up solo album, Whitey Ford Sings the Blues, he suffered a near-fatal heart attack. He was born with a heart defect. It was passed on to him genetically through his family, and he needed to have emergency open heart surgery to save his life. And I think the narrative of this really turned into, oh, this experience informed the album that he made, and that's why he made this kind of music. But really, the album, as I understand it, the album was mostly done when the heart attack happened. It would have sounded like this anyway. I think the heart attack helped people to take the album as more of an artistic statement rather than a stunt, because it could have easily been seen as that. I mean, how often do you see someone go in a completely different direction and a totally different style for an album as opposed to the type of music they were doing before, and it actually worked, it actually being well received by the public? You don't see that happen too often. A lot of the times I think people are skeptical when someone tries to change things up a little bit too radically. People aren't usually open-minded about that sort of thing, but he managed to pull it off. And hey, if having a heart attack is what it takes to get people to take you seriously, then I guess it wasn't all for nothing. This is What It's Like, and this came out in late 1998. I remember very clearly seeing the performance on Saturday Night Live. I had not heard the song anywhere on the radio before. I knew who Everlast was. I knew damn near every word to Jump Around already by the time I was a kid. I didn't know he had a new album out, and I'd heard that Everlast was going to be the musical guest on Saturday Night Live. They announced it. I remember staying up on a Saturday night watching his performance and just seeing him come out with this full band lineup and just playing guitar and singing this song that I had never heard yet before, and just thinking, wait, is this the same guy? I mean, he looks sort of familiar. It could be him. If this is him, he's undergone some kind of radical transformation. I don't remember him being able to do this when he was in House of Pain. And I think it surprised a lot of people when it came out. I don't know if anybody even had any inkling that Everlast knew how to play guitar, let alone was singing and playing these folk and classic rock influenced tunes. That's exactly what he was doing.
God forbid you ever had to walk a mile in his shoes. Then you really might know what it's like to sing the blues.
When I was in college, I had a friend I used to hang out with a lot, and one time we were at a party and this song came on. He was talking to another friend of mine at the time, and I remember him telling her that he thinks that everybody should listen to this song. Listen to the words, listen to the message. I remember him saying that if everybody would take the message of this song to heart, the world would be a better place. What this song is basically a plea for empathy. It's a reminder that not everybody has it as good as we do, and it can be very beneficial in the way that we treat others to try to consider things from a different perspective. That's it. It doesn't go any further than that. It doesn't tell you to change the way that you're living, just the way that you're thinking and the way that you're looking at things. And it gives a few examples of that, things that are, I think, shunned and stigmatized by society, like drug dealing, homelessness, abortion. But to me, the important part of the song actually comes in the middle. It's the bridge, when he's playing the intro to the song again. This is the part that I think contains the most important socially conscious message of the song.
Rich man beg, I seen a good man sin, I seen a tough man cry. I seen a loser win and a sad man grin, I heard an honest man lie.
So the bottom line here is that labels don't mean anything. I think we try to simplify other people's issues a lot so that we don't have to think about them too much. And that way we don't have to change the way that we treat them. You can think you know someone, but that doesn't mean that they don't experience all the same things that you do. That they don't share the same humanity and the same feelings. To me, that's what keeps the song from getting too preachy, is that it ends up functioning sort of as a reminder that the more that we try to simplify things and try to fit them into little convenient types of categories, the more we miss the bigger picture and the less we understand the complex realities of the situation. By the way, I don't have to tell you that this isn't really blues, right? This was during the high point in the 90s where people were trying to combine rock and rap by any means necessary. Even freaking Puff Daddy was doing it by that point. And a trend has jumped the shark when Puff Daddy gets on it. But in spite of that, it still manages to stand out. It still manages to be something different from the other attempts at crossing over rock and rap that people were doing. I think what helps this one is it's more of a straight-up alternative rock song with a vaguely hip-hop sounding backbeat and some record scratches in there. It's actually closer to something like Beck than it is to any other straight-up rock or rap group out there at the time. Actually, the song this reminds me of the most is Drive by R.E.M. from 1992's Automatic for the People.
Smash, smash, crack, push, whack, tie another one to the racks, baby. Max used to pay fast stacks out on the corner with drugs.
I mean, that's almost the same riff, right? Certainly the same key, that D minor arpeggiated chord. So in spite of the title Whitey Ford Sings the Blues, it's really more of just another rap album from Everlast. A lot of it sounds like it wouldn't have been out of place back in 1990 when he released his first solo debut. It's a little more up-to-date, a little more modernized, but for the most part it's the same type of stuff he was doing then, with these one or two like extra acoustic guitar folk songs.
Holding watches and chains when he's from business school and is nervous with the tools, so he ends up on his back in a bloody pool for the hands. Some people were robbing mother for the hands.
You know, in some ways, I think this probably is a stronger song than What It's Like, but what it lacks is that central message. I don't feel like this song is really saying anything all that constructive, unlike What It's Like. The message is basically, people do bad things for money, which is fine and true enough, but it doesn't have that next step in there, like, okay, then what? You know, what's your solution, or what's the idea? What can we do to combat people's greed? He never really provides any answer to that, but the song itself is pretty good.
Sometimes kids get murdered for hands. So before we go any further, I want my hands.
So after What It's Like and Whitey Ford Sings the Blues became hits, Everlast got a call from a man named Carlos Santana who asked him if he had a song that he wanted to record with him for his upcoming album. And Everlast ended up presenting him with a song that would go on to win the Grammy for Best Rock Performance by a Duo or Group with Vocal. Yeah, those Grammy categories get weirdly specific sometimes.
You sinners, put your lights on, put your lights on.
Despite the guitar work of Santana, I don't think this song is really as interesting as any of the stuff he was doing on Whitey Ford Sings the Blues. It almost totally lacks the hip-hop influences that he had on that album. I think the real weakness of it is that the lyrics are just kind of this run-on stream of consciousness that doesn't really add up to anything concrete for me.
Better leave your lights on, 'cause there's a monster living under my bed, whispering in my ear.
After the 90s were over, Everlast did stay in the public eye for some time. He released a follow-up album in 2000 called Eat It Whitey's, which brought him a few more minor radio hits. He had a brief feud with Eminem for a while. I think later on his style sort of got stolen by idiots like Uncle Kracker, who kind of ruined it. He's released a number of other solo albums the following decade and as well as this decade. I saw that he had another one that was scheduled for release this year, but we'll see if it comes out. Apparently he's had some problems with releasing some of his last couple of records. He's got his own label now, so hopefully he can get around that. He even reformed with the House of Pain guys at some point. Yeah, they formed a supergroup called La Coca Nostra in 2006. And he's done the theme song for the TV show Saving Grace. Everlast has done pretty much whatever he wants, it seems. You know, from the time of his second comeback from the House of Pain, yeah, he's just been involved in a number of different things, and overall I just think he's had a unique and interesting career, which has yielded at least a few songs that I think are going to stay popular for a very long time. You know, something about What It's Like seems very timeless to me. It still sounds good today to me, and I think it's probably still going to sound good, you know, maybe a couple of decades from now. So I guess the bottom line is you can never really write off Everlast entirely, because who knew that he had it in him? I did read that there was apparently a really early interview with him where people were asking if he wanted to be known as a white rapper, and his answer to that was he would rather be known as a musician than just a rapper, and I think over time he proved that to be true. So until next time, I'm Jacob, and this was Bad 90s Music. I'll see you sometime in the future. I seen a white guy rap, I seen a big